Madume beso me tsatsing lena la kajeno re tla ho wena ka o tloloa ebile hape o re mametse dialemoyeng tse fapaneng tsa kwano Freistata. Mmuso wa province ya Freistata e utlwisetsa lesolo la ho fana ka tlaleho eo e leng hore re bitsa fela ka hore ke #leave no one behind. Me sethaleng ke dialemoya tse fapaneng tsa kwano Freistata ebile hape re boetse re hlaella ka o tloloa ho FSPG ya digital. Me ke tsona seno sentse re kena ho tsona re kene kanqane ho hora ya botshelela. Mamedi re ya o dumedisa hohle mo mametseng o le teng, re ya le dumedisa di radio stationeng tse fapaneng dialemoyeng tse fapaneng, re ya le dumedisa Motheo FM, re ya le dumedisa Mosupa Tsela FM, re ya o dumedisa hape CUT FM ebile re boetse re amohela wena Setsoto FM, re ya o dumedisa ka mono ka Thaba di Mahla, Thaba di Mohodi, Qwaqwa Radio, re ya dumedisa re hoa madume ka mono ka Dihlabeng FM, Karabo FM re a sepa le lona le mametse ka kotloloho, mme re a le dumedisa. Tseba hoba o ka boela wa re fumana hape online ka mane ka Facebook, o ka ya leqhepeng la province kapa la treasury, o tla re fumana re ntse re le teng mono, mme hape re boela re dumedisa ba Metsimaholo FM, ha re ya le lebala re a le dumedisa. Tseba o ka nka karolo puisanong ya rona tsatsing lena la kajeno ele ha o ka fana ka maikutlo a hawa, wa fana ka ditshwaelo tsa hawa kapa wa boela wa fana ka dipotso tsa hawa, o ka tsubila molaetsa kapa molaetsa khatiso ho 066 4791707, ke tla ipeta 066 4791707. Haebe o batla ho nka karolo tsa letsatsi lena la kajeno, ke itse ho wena ke #leave no one behind. Me puisanong ya rona ya kajeno mamedi re o tshwaretse ke mmitsa the goddess. Do you even know that I call you the goddess?
Oh, that's beautiful.
You don't know.
Thank you.
You know, they didn't tell you.
Never. Wow.
I call you the goddess. I call you
but you're
Miss.
a goddess too.
Thank you very much. I also call you Miss Dugon Fleek.
Okay, what does that mean?
You will know as the time goes.
Okay.
But who helps you to put on your do?
Me. I do it
Yourself?
myself. Yes.
Are you serious?
I've been wearing scarves since 6 years old. But not
Yes.
like this. Clothes. Different
Oh.
forms. But perhaps since 2012.
Oh.
Oh yes, Duke on Fleek, yes.
Duke on Fleek.
Yes,
Now you get it.
Since
Now-
2012.
Now
yes.
you get it.
Yes.
Mui luena mo mamedi mono lapeng moeti wa rona tsatsing lena la kajeno ke the honorable MEC Gadija Brown. Me re ya mo amohela. A very good evening and welcome to all the radio stations and online.
Thank you, ma'am, Mimi, and good evening and greetings to all the community radio stations, community media. I can see there's a whole list. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I love this collaboration on behalf of Free State Provincial Government, the Office of the Premier, and of course, the extension to our community, which is yourselves as journalists and the radio stations and media of our province.
Thank you so much, MEC. Can you tell us a bit about your mandate as a provincial treasurer?
It's a lovely mandate, but perhaps one of the most difficult, I guess. Often Treasury is blamed for everything. You know, when there's no projects, Treasury, no money, Treasury, cost containment, Treasury, no appointments, Treasury. But it's a wonderful and exciting and a very honorable position to have. It is a difficult, but I think from a growth perspective, in terms of my team, in terms of the staff, we've got the most professional, most wonderful human beings that are in Treasury. And that is something, everything that we've achieved is through them. So let me start there and thank them very, very much. I think as the sixth administration entered, we wanted to focus on a couple of things. And I pulled out my list of my very first meeting of bilaterals with all provincial departments, because as Treasury, you look after provincial government, you look after local government, and you work very, very closely with national government, because National Treasury provides the equitable share, National Treasury does allocations, they lead fiscal policy, and we support that and we contribute towards that. So our role really is an integrated approach towards what we want to achieve as a province and municipality. So top of the first meeting was governance. Believe it or not, I pulled it out. 2019 was
2019.
Yes, 2019 was my first meeting, and in that meeting, my notes were governance. We want to see improved governance in municipalities, improved governance in provincial departments. The second note was municipalities and what we needed to focus on, which was debt collection, revenue enhancement, innovation on water, solar, as well as energy, SEM compliance, service delivery, annual financial statements, irregular expenditure, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, grant funding and grant governance support, EPWP, do a lot of oversight and monitoring and evaluation. And then the last part of that was provincial departments, improved revenue enhancement, reduction of duplications, optimization of our resources, reduction of leakages, SEM compliance, 30-day payments, irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, monitoring and evaluation, risk management. And we wanted to see innovation, ICT, e-submissions, revenue enhancement through recording of donations, recording of journals, AGSA through innovation and technology, triple P's, research and other national treasury solutions. And then of course lastly, infrastructure support, enhance SCM support functions and support PAG, unit and management of staff. So we look at an internal focus and we look at an external focus, because treasury cannot be a department that is focused solely on treasury. It is a support function to the entire province, so we provide support. And the one thing I also changed at the time was the MEC, the executive authority, has the right to decide how to allocate funds. But I made a decision, we did a resolution at the executive at the time to say that no one individual will decide how funds move or shift in this province. It will be done through EXCO resolution. So since then, not a single budget decision was made in isolation or made by an individual. It always had to come to the executive, and the executive decides how to do trade-offs, how to increase funds. So in that way, it was a collective effort, and I'm so grateful to the terms that we've had through all the executive councils and all my colleagues, and of course the Premier at the time, and our Premier right now. With that function, it has really helped us focus on so many things in our province in order to make some changes in Treasury. So thank you to my colleagues, to the people of the Free State, and to my team.
May, going forward, congratulations on your achievements. Can you take us through to those achievements that maybe for the last financial year?
All right, so the maybe 3 or 4 critical aspects that I want to highlight was that the first thing that you do is look at an audit report. When you're at Treasury, that's the thing, right? And this year it was quite exciting for the AGSA to say that the leadership has set a tone, and that tone and trajectory is in the right direction. So we've had 8 improvements over the past years, but Treasury has received in this term a clean audit, and previously 2 clean audits as well. Fleet management has achieved a clean audit. The Housing Fund has achieved a clean audit. The Revenue Fund has achieved a clean audit. The Legislature has achieved a clean audit. COCTA has already achieved a clean audit. So we are seeing more clean audits in our province. And the idea and the wish that I had was that by March, we would be able to put sufficient amount of work by the end of that financial year to be able to start doing the audit process and see about 7 clean audits in our province. I know it's a tall ask, but it's doable. And I think with having to build reserves, because we were used to a month-on-month overdraft. So we invested our cash and we built some additional funding through interest income, and we were able to generate revenue and collect interest to the value of 250 or maybe 300 million rand that went into other service delivery programs. And in tough economic times like we have, where we're having cost containment measures, and where we are consolidating programs, and where we're finding ways to manage our finances and tightening the belt, for the province to be able to generate additional income has been quite significant. And I must also state that 1.4 billion was collected from other departments. So the focus on revenue generation has been quite high. And that has been able to keep our financial books in a positive balance and financially healthy. But what I'd like us to then, on the other hand, achieve is that as our books are healthy, we've got to spend and we've got to do service delivery. And we've got to make sure that where the expenditure happens, it is in areas where it's going to generate growth in our economy. It is going to increase that revenue. So we don't want to spend in consumption areas where we just see it going, and consumption lasts for a very short period, and it shows for that period only, either in the quarter or the year. But whilst you're looking at further developmental projects that leads to growth in the economy, like infrastructure and other service delivery and sustainable programs, that will then generate additional revenue for 10, 15 more years to come. So the audits, the generation of revenue, governance, we've reduced our irregular expenditure by $1 billion. I'd like us to be more focused on the administration, where we can reduce the accumulative irregular expenditure by working through those irregular expenditures, dealing with the loss management, value for money, and investigations. That's something that we still need to work on. And then we've had some wonderful programs like the Anti-Fraud Strategy and Summit, Anti-Corruption Summit. We've had the financial literacy programs that helps individuals understand what they need to do with their rands and cents, how to invest, long-term investments, preparation for the future. We've also had various revenue enhancement programs. We've had CSD programs where we have supplier development come in, and together with partners like SARS, Gadija, CIDB, CIFA, CEDA, and we're able to help communities understand how to comply and deal with the regulatory environment of how to do business with government. We've had beautiful economic reviews, both at a municipal level and a provincial economic level, so that can help us with an outlook to plan and to be able to show where the opportunities are for new ventures or any other economic opportunities in the province. Municipalities, we've been able to have a higher submission of audited financial statements at the end of this financial year for municipalities than we've ever had. We've had more funded budgets in municipalities, not as many as I'd like to see, but from 5 to 8, which is a significant improvement given some of the challenges that we're having in local government. So there's quite a few things, and we've got an infrastructure team that does oversight and monitoring. So I think that I would love the team to push on to do more. We'd like to rally on with the passion and the excitement to really show that we building an efficacy of a Free State province, an efficacy of government of the state in our province. So that's what we're excited to do.
So my next question was going to be a successive clean audit. What's the secret? But I think I've heard it all.
I've got
you said a mouthful.
I've got a tough HOD. We know she's very tough. She's an auditor. But we've also got a very strong team. We've got a very strong finance team. We've got a very strong department, and very professional, highly educated. We continue to invest in our people through CETA learning, through skills development. But I believe that the success is for the team to have access to information and to really understand and build the capacity to read any legislation or read regulation and be able to interpret it in a solution-based format, not in an environment where it hinders progress or allows for a progressive way of doing business in government. So that's the important part, and that then creates the area where we are able to see some positive improvement in the province.
Wena muhi le wena momamedi mo mametseng o le teng ka nete ka romela dipotso tsa hao, mme ka potso e lengwe fela o sa rabiletsa ka tse ngata le toto la dipotso tseo ke neng ke mmehetse tsona. Romela ditshwaelo tsa hao kapa dipotso tsa hao ho WhatsApp line ya rona, yona ke 066 479 1707. 066 479 1707. O ka ba momamedi wa Motheo FM, o ka ba momamedi wa CUTFM Setsoto FM, Maqwaqwa Radio, Dihlabeng FM, Karabo FM, ebile hape o ka boela wa re hlodisa ka mane ka online Facebook le kapeng la province ha mmoho le la treasury, me le wena ka mane ka Metsimaholo FM. O ka nthusa ka dipotso ka nnete ba mme ka potso e le nngwe fela ka santsa mathaka tseo ke di hlophisitseng ka kwano. Me Brown, can you tell us a bit about the improvements of the provincial liquidity? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. So we do have challenges from a liquidity perspective, specifically in 3 areas. The Department of Education, Department of Health, and Community Safety, Roads and Transport. Many years ago, we've had to, I may want to put the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure in that as well. So I can just talk a little bit about 3 or 4 key issues. The reprioritization of budget many years ago. Education, for example. We took about 300 million at the time out of the Department of Education and we built it into a bursary program. And that progressively over the years has not come back to the Department of Education. Although we have subsequently looked at a ratio, if we call a ratio allocation over a certain medium-term expenditure framework, which has provided education with a bit of a challenge when it comes to the postings, when it comes to appointments, when it comes to payment of salaries, and they would overspend on that specific line item. So what we try and do is we try and create environmental shifting, meaning that we take it from one program to another program, but then it affects other programs. And teachers, educators are largely a big service delivery item in the Department of Education. Similarly with the Department of Health, your nurses and your doctors. And the Department of Community Safety, Roads and Transport, traffic officers. Public Works, on the other hand, for the longest time, and I think it started in Soweto, where one provincial government said, okay, we've got an internal IGR relationship between ESCOM and ourselves. So we'll agree that over a period, we will just pay current accounts and we'll deal with the accruals later, which has built our accruals in the province up to about 3.5 billion rand. We're now down to just under 1 billion rand. So what we've been able to do then is progressively reduce those specific budget pressures. I would say that the province is in a financially healthy position. Yesterday, I looked at a cash position of our province. We were bank positive of 1.7 billion rand. And that is projected to be spent on commitments throughout these departments over the next 2 months. So we know that by December, January, we would have fulfilled our commitments on those cash. So we are cash positive at this point. And being cash positive allows us then to ensure and introduce new mechanisms where we can generate more revenue and bring more money into our province. So apart from the liquidity aspect internally, we've also been able to look at external factors, partnerships, triple Ps, utilizing our assets for a public-private partnership and making sure that it's done in a correct manner through the normal regulatory process of private-public partnerships, but with the intention to grow the revenue of our province. We've also looked at national departments. So where there are, for example, CETAs, for example, additional funding through DFIs or the DTIC, or any other arm of the state that we could partner with to be able to ensure that we generate additional income and ensure that we maximize our budget with some sort of financial partnering. It has really helped us to ensure that our financial health is at a better level and we can still achieve what we need to achieve despite the challenging times that we have financially. So our liquidity is good at this stage, and I think that where we should be more effective is in the infrastructure aspect. So we want to see that out of 100% of what we see on the ground is 100% of the spending. But we're seeing 80% of spending and 50% on the ground, and that then becomes a challenge where we are not seeing the balance. And we want to do some work in that regard to look at how do we reduce the gap between what's in the ground and what's so floor to book and book to floor, that type of thing. But we are getting there, I think, with the necessary focus and the same sort of mindset. I think we would be able to find our way to a much more healthier, more productive state.
We kutletse wana ngwaneso ke floor to book to floor me re ntse re tswela pele lena ke letoto la mananeo a tlang ho fela ka la 20 a motso o mong me ke itse buena ke #leave no one behind me haebe ona le potso etsa jwalo he o sontse o tseba o tsebile molaetsa ho 0664971707 ke tsona tse no re ntse re dutse le MEC ya rona the goddess me Gadija Brown antsa a re fa ka phihlelo tsa hae selemo sena se fetileng sa tekanyetso ya ditšhelete ebile le nakong e tlang hore na ke eng tseo ba lebeletseng hore di etsa kapa ba tlo di etsa bakeng sa rona bohle haholo ma Freistata a matle. How do you strengthen your role on budget implementation? How do you do that?
Mama Jola. Yes, so as a treasury, I often say this, and the premier looks at me and he's like, "What is this woman talking about?" But I say to him that treasury can't be a referee and a player, and we're not perfect, right? We also make mistakes. There are some flaws that we also have to deal with.
Yes.
We would not be able to be part of a supply chain advertising committee, or they call it a specifications committee. We can't be part of evaluation or adjudication committees and then still do a probity review after that. We can't do that, unfortunately. So what we've been able to do thus far, and I think maybe this is a nice time to reflect and ask ourselves if we should do something different.
Okay.
So over the years, we have monthly reviews. We have a standing item at forward level, at the cluster level, and at exco level that talks to budgets, expenditure, and revenue. We have quarterly reviews, and part of that quarterly reviews we have to account to the legislature. We do PM Tex, which is a period where we look at the medium-term expenditure committee, and that then brings in all departments who's got a table of reference or terms of reference. And we ask every single department to report on key issues. What may be the challenges? Is it the business plan? Does DORA affect it? Does the budget allocation? Do we have to change earmark funding? Do we have to look at reclassification of the funds? What is it that we need to do? And then also projects, how far are we, what percentage, what commitments, portfolio of evidence, and. So we've got a team that reviews all of it. And I believe that we also have a team that can enforce expenditure. So expenditure or under expenditure. So we do some sort of level of projections. So we can tell already at the second quarter of the year whether a department's going to spend all their funds or not. And then we get departments that hold onto this. No, we're going to spend it. We're going to spend it. And then by the time you wake up, because it's so fast, a tender hasn't gone out for a specific catalytic project. And then the rollover happens, or it is surrendered back to Treasury. And that is the fear that I have, is that we have to have complete trust and faith in our accounting officers, in those who report and those who have to be accountable for this funding. And we don't want to deter that relationship as Treasury, because we also want to be supportive but also progressive. Our challenge is that we have to find a mechanism, and I think with a proper IDMS model, with an innovative technological system, with a dashboard that allows us to see real-time figures in terms of expenditure and real-time access to information on the ground, meaning if you've got a budget and it's a project, and you click on the budget and project, it says it's 29% in progress. You click on that, it shows you how far, because you've got a picture that's uploaded. I'd like to see a digital way that we can manage this. And in that way, you could actually say, but this project is not where you're saying it is, because the picture is showing us something different. Or that picture is showing us that you're 29%, but you're saying that you're 50% expenditure already. So I think at some point we're going to have to transcend and enhance our ways into a more technological friendly way of reporting. And I know it's a dream at the moment. Everybody's thinking, oh, this lady's crazy. But I've seen it happening in very, very strategic infrastructure organizations. And if it can happen elsewhere, it can definitely happen in a Free State provincial government. So I think that might be the next project that I'm going to ask the team to look at. Just to help us fix that.
Yeah. So MEC, do you also have a team that enforces performance?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do. So our department has got 6 core programs.
All
So
right.
the one is support administrative program. The other one is dealing with the budgets. So they do budgets and budget oversight. They've also got this infrastructure team. We've got a 5 billion infrastructure budget, and they look at this budget, they go out to projects, they assist the teams, they talk about regulations and so on and so forth. Then we've got the PAG, who deals with the audits, making sure the financial reporting is done correctly. Then we've got a municipality function as well, who looks after all municipalities and their budgets and governance. And then we've also got the sustainable asset and liability team. So there are teams that are linked to municipalities and linked to provincial government. And they also report to Parliament. They report to provincial parliament, national parliament, and to our executive, and to councils in our municipalities. There is a team. And it's just how those councils, how the executive takes it, deals with the recommendations, and then provides the enforcement. We've got DC boards, we've got shared services of audits and risk management. We've also ensured that we've got a correct MSCOA and other impacts that are able to help us look at oversight and hold these individuals accountable. The implementation and that consequence management is our challenge.
Okay, consequence management. So do you talking about municipalities, do you assist them? Do you guide them to improve their audit outcome?
Oh yes, we lament. You know, the other day the premier was with the AGSA, and ourselves, COCTA, DG, and the 2 HODs we were with National AGSA, and it was a very scary report. Unfortunately, I cannot divulge the outcomes just yet because she's still signing off some of the reports. We've got 2 improvements in the province and 1 regression, but largely it's record keeping. What Treasury does from a financial perspective is we hold SCM monthly meetings. We hold financial monthly meetings. We've got SALGA as the mother body who looks after just how a municipality has to be run. We do council support and training on how to manage reports, what to provide to council. We've done troika discussions. We have had our impact launch in our province. We've done the disciplinary board launch in the province. We sit down and talk about infrastructure funding and how it should be allocated and implemented, and why you cannot use infrastructure funds to pay salaries and vice versa. So we do audit action plans. We go out to my teams are with municipalities every day. The autonomy, I believe, could be a challenge because every accounting officer has to account individually. And that issue of referee and the player comes in again. You cannot have both roles. So I believe that once again, there's something different that we should be doing. Consequence management comes up once again. So we do help municipalities, we do. We have to find the right people. We have to ensure that we have a capable team, which we are deploying in most municipalities. I can see the changes happening in a couple of municipalities. but we can do a lot better. There is a lot more work that needs to be done in that sphere.
So, are there any new projects that the department is maybe going to implement in the near future?
As Treasury, we always have new projects. So the first thing that the Premier has asked us to do is review our procurement processes. Let's start with the regulation. It's not a progressive regulation. The papers that we've been able to produce is just layers and layers of a lot of more bureaucracy on how we deal with supply chain. We finding ourselves getting stuck on emergency issues. We have a disaster, then NGOs are at the disaster site sooner than we are, because you have to do a trip authority for somebody to go to that disaster site and take a government vehicle to the disaster site. Now, you can only have that trip authority signed and approved if there's a certain person in the office signing and approving it, whilst everybody else in the country is running around and at the disaster, together with whatever resources or materials that are required to deal with that specific disaster at hand. So I think that's just a clean example of the delayed approach towards how SCM is maybe not. There are other means and ways like framework programs or emergency deviations and. But I think the fear of a CFO or an administrator to make a mistake becomes largely top of mind because of some of the legislative challenges that we're having in our country, and of course it's a silly season. We're going into elections, so nobody wants to make a mistake at this stage. So we've got to change our policy on procurement, and part of what we've done in the democratic environment was to ensure that we build an inclusive procurement system where women are enabled much faster to deal with the equity or equality issue. Women, young people, people living with disability, and military veterans. So our policies from a procurement perspective works in that way. So our role as Treasury is, in terms of the new projects, I would like to ensure that we have some sort of draft paper that must go to our provincial parliament, that goes to national parliament and is reviewed countrywide. So that would be the first point of departure. The second point of departure is to create a seamless, paperless, audited government to build the efficacy and also to ensure that from an audit perspective, the person, that manual issue, and we're not taking away anybody's job because you'll still be doing what you're doing, but on a system, not just a paper that will get lost under the table or thrown in the dustbin.
On the system.
It must be saved on the system. It can lie there for 20 years, not in Metrofile 5 years from now. So you can have information and you're able to pull the information and you've got a report and a record and a history of what it is that you're doing. So we've got to build that. We've got to, so I'd like to see a Free State provincial government that is able to put in an S&T requirement on a system and get paid on that system without having to go through too many BAS systems, then Logos, and then you must put your account number, then it must go to Parsal and get approved by a checker, this one, that one, and so on. It gets done on the computer and you can take it home and you've got Wi-Fi and you do that as well. So, and then of course, project municipalities, project local government. But the biggest one of all is the structural reform and change of our economy in the province. And Treasury or Finance has got a huge role to play in fiscal policy, in ensuring that the resources from the goods and services, infrastructure, the expenditure of government is allocated towards a progressive growing economy. And that's probably one of the most priority projects that we have, so that we can invest in investments and not consumption.
Including the Pink project.
Oh, the Pink project
what is it,
there.
by the way?
Okay, so the Pink project is an IDMS, so it's your infrastructure and knowledge management program, right?
Okay.
So they call it performance on infrastructure and knowledge management. So what helps is we've got municipalities that are in the pilot phase, and they work on ensuring that there's an integrated plan across that municipality over a period. So proper planning, proper in terms of your IDP, so your development aspect, and then the gates and the phases of how you implement. So if I have it correctly, the municipalities that are on, it's called Procurement, Infrastructure Management and Knowledge Management Program. And the municipalities are Setsoto, Tswelopele, Metsimaholo, and Mukaka. So it's a toolkit that helps us create an efficient infrastructure development program against the IDPs, their planning and their monitoring. It's interesting. It comes from the UK. So there's the Swedish government or the Swiss government that's also built in some knowledge experts and technological experts to help us with this. And we've seen that the model in 2019 to date, department scored 60% to the 40% that we used to see in terms of how the growth on the infrastructure development model happened over the period. So it's quite a good program, I believe. But I think there's a lot of more work that can be done in the sense that the capacity of those municipalities at all levels of the organization in a municipality needs to follow through with it.
Yo, I only saw the color pink and I was thinking something else. I was thinking something totally different.
It's like my cheeks.
Wena muhi ili wena mumamedi sa le ke lebella dipotso tsa hao ka bane ka 066 479 1707 mme o tsoma metsi puisano ena ka mane ka Motheo FM o tsoma metsi puisano ena ka Mosupatsela FM CUT FM Setsoto FM Qwaqwa Radio Dihlabeng FM le ka mane ka Karabo FM me arise wa re fumana mane online Facebook le qepeng la province hape le leqepe la treasury re ntse re sa lebale le wena ka mono ka Metsi Maholo FM ke ne ke itse ha ona le potso o tlo o tsibile molaetsa ka mono ke tla e fetisa e le tala e le jalo ka mane ka 066 479 1707 ke ntse ke tlodisa ha ke so bone dipotso tsa hao wena ngwaneso fela he o tsebe sena ke se etsahalang e tlo ba le toto la puisano tse tjena ho fihla ka la 12 ha motso mong ha ebe ke sa fose mme tsatsing lena ke letsatsi la pele jalo ka ha ele la 4 this is the 4th of December. Am I mistaken? Yes. Jolo ka ile letsatsi la 4 kgweding ya Tshitwe ke letsatsi la pele la dipuisano sa mofuta ona me mmuso wa province ya Freistata o ntse o tswela pele ho tlisetsa lesolo lena la o fana ka tlaleho ya leave no one behind me haebe ona le potso ka nnete o ka etsa jalo ho atsubila molaetsa mono mo ke seng a ke o file teng wena mo mamedi lapeng mono le hohle mo mametseng o le teng. Is there anything that you think our listeners should know that I might have left behind?
Yeah, so let's go with the theme, leave no one behind.
Leave no one behind, yes.
I'm very excited. Our treasury teams have done the supply development programs, and I really want the audience to hear this, because if I could just give you an overview of how challenged our country is from a fiscal environment, is that we were at a 58% deficit in terms of collection of revenue. We're going through a debt review program with Eskom, so we've had to find 250 plus billion rand, and that then brought about the cost containment letter that you've seen, and I'm sure everybody knows about that cost containment letter that was written by the DG. And what we've done as a province is we've actually got National Treasury to assist us with the wage review, and through that we've been able to bring in 1,048 million. And we're very excited about that, including that revenue that I spoke about. But we're saying the only way for us to be more stable as a country is to generate more revenue, because we cannot cut more expenses. The more you cut expenses as a government, the less you're spending and the less you're generating GDP flow in our economy. The other way of managing the fiscal policy is to go and borrow more, and we cannot borrow more. It's 72% debt to GDP. So the only way is to raise revenue. But we're saying to people out there, become job creators. Ensure that you go out and you find things to do to help burst this economy. So SMME development is top of mind, and we're working very well with all departments to ensure that that happens. So our supplier program, we've been able to do 8 different areas of activation in the most rural areas of our province. And we are very excited to see more young people interested in wanting to do work with government, but not only with government, with private sector as well. So go out and open your business through CIPC, do it in whichever form, either a company, sole proprietorship, close corporation, JV, whichever way you want to do it, cooperative, and start doing your trading in your environments. But know that the only way that you'll have direct access to mainstream economy is through compliance, and tax management, your document management, regulatory management is critically important. And on our website, Treasury has got adverts in all areas that we go and do this program. And like I said, we have SARS with us, we have CIDB with us. So if in the construction environment, CIDB is there. We have the CEDAs there to help with the business side. We have Destia there to help with the opportunity and empowerment and transformation side. And the more we see more companies coming onto our CSD, the better it is for transparency, for fairness, and for an opportunity for everyone to have access to doing work in national government, provincial government, and local government. Knock on your doors of municipalities. Go to the private sector. Private sector also needs water. They also need toilet paper. They also need uniforms. Go knock on the door and say, give me an opportunity. As the sector charter says, you've got to transform your supply or preferential procurement with a certain percentage. Give me this time an opportunity. I can do painting. I can fix a window. I can fix a light bulb. I can issue computers or whatever it may be. Go into the private sector and go ask for that work. Similarly, these media houses, the private sector has got so many functions that they do and events. Nothing stops you from knocking on the door and saying, give me a chance, I'd like to interview your executive. So what Treasury, together with our partners, we do is to ensure that we guide you and we give you a solid foundation to be correctly compliant when it's doing business with private or public sector. Even the boards, even your CETAs, whatever it is, we will help you. So that is something that I think is a project where we're saying Treasury is leaving no one behind. And that's not only women, youth, people with disability, military veterans. We're saying everyone. Then we've got a financial literacy program that I spoke about. And that talks to everybody at any stage of their lives. As a 40-plus-year-old individual, in the most specialized financial position that you can be, we still have trouble. Our inflation is high. You have a bond. That bond has doubled. You need to know that you can go for a rental holiday so that you can help out with some of those challenged expenses, and there are mechanisms and means to help you deal with your financial challenges at the moment. So those are also beautiful projects that leave no one behind. But most importantly, I think that part of our big project is the skills development, the audit sphere, the accounting sphere, the regulatory sphere, the board member and the executive and the governance sphere. We do a lot of training, we do a lot of knowledge management, and we support so many municipalities and teams with some of our projects and plans. So we try, even though we're not a mandated department to deal with community issues directly, but as far as possible, we try and integrate the empowerment and transformational and to ensure that every single citizen of this province has access to giving us ideas on the budget and what it is that they need and how we can implement the budgets going forward.
All right. MEC, in closing, I can see we have run out of time, but we have questions on our WhatsApp line.
Yes.
I'll read a few of them. I think I'll manage. The other question is, what measures is the Free State Province Treasury taking to combat the corruption and fraud? And the other one is saying, what are the key priorities of the Free State Provincial Treasury in the next financial year? Hold that thought. The other one is saying, you mentioned Okay, what happened here? Okay, you can answer them.
Okay, so we have got an anti-fraud and anti-corruption program every year, but the practical implementation is that we've got relationships with the Walks, with the SIU, with various other institutions that help us provide the correct and the prudent probing type of information that we need to provide towards some of these fraud and corruption cases. So we support a whistleblowing program, we support the toll-free line, and we utilize that information and we hand it over to the authorities where cases have been opened, and we do support the authorities through information. Treasury has got the Center of Information through our systems, and we also are able to support some of the supply chain prescripts that are provided over the period that allows for the efficacy of that investigation to happen. So if some accounting standards have changed during the time of that investigation, we're able to provide that specialist support and provide the necessary information. We also do and support a framework of forensic investigations that are happening with consultants and partners in the private sector and also within government. And of course, internally, we do lodge the necessary areas of complaints where there are specific written submissions to ourselves. I would get the specialists to look at it and do a review and do an audit. We've got very good internal auditors. We've got a very good external audit committee that is able to look at the highlighted things. So if you are a certified financial auditor, you are able to immediately see this shouldn't have happened that way, that shouldn't have happened, and you can moderate and provide recommendations, and then we hand it over to the authorities to deal with it in the corrective way. The AGSA is our great partner as well, so they do MIs, and we are able to look at how we deal with those as well. On the new projects, I think I spoke a little bit about those four major issues.
Where they said those young people after the internships, what should they do? What do you do about them?
You know, we would love
we
to
only
absorb.
have 2 minutes.
I know, we love to absorb every intern. We would love to absorb every intern. We next year, from going forward in March, we've got a program to reorganize ourselves in terms of our organogram. And I'm calling on all those interns to apply for the positions that are going to come up because they've got that little bit of experience. But the Premier is embarking on the job creation program, and I think when he does his section, he's going to talk about the job creation program. And I would also encourage those interns to go and listen to his ideas, which will also bring them into not only government, but into the private sector. We gotta generate more work in our economy so that more people like our interns and unemployed graduates have access to opportunities to work and become a job creator. I would like to say that. Be innovative, do something for yourself and create some jobs, and yes, in that way we will try and combat the challenge that we have with unemployment.
MEC, in 1 minute, your message for the festive season for the Free
Oh
Staters.
yes, please be safe. Youngsters, please have a great time. Everybody refresh. It's been a very, very tough year. Refresh, go back, self-reflect. It starts within. Once you understand who you are, you will see the world for what the world is, and you'll know what it is, it's your purpose, what you've got to contribute. Go back to your spirituality. It's time to really go back to God and really look for some direction in that. Even if you don't believe in God, look for some direction. And together as a province, we are absolutely resilient. I know that this province will succeed. So happy, have a wonderful festive season. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, have a blessed Christmas and a happy New Year. Thank you so much.
Kaona manzwano ki mami majola wa Motel FM 88.5 mote wangati ya hone kikretile.
Kia leboa. Thank you, Mami Majola and team. Thank you so much.
Kia leboa MEC.